Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
2023, you guys, and I'm winging it. Hi, it's Jackie Cation. Welcome to the Dork Forest. That's the website, the Dork Forest, if you like a determiner. DorkForest.com also works. JackieCation.com has all of my stand-up information. Like, it has videos, it has pictures, it has links to this podcast and to my other podcast with Lori Kilmartin. It has a merch store that has Dork Forest t-shirts. It has all of my stand-up merch and all of my CDs and DVDs. So that's what you know about websites. There's an opportunity because we're in the new year here that you can donate to the Dork Forest. I don't have a Patreon. I don't have anything really set up, though I understand you can set up on PayPal a monthly if you wanted to. You could donate and be of to support the show. This is the 17th season, the 17th year I've been putting this stuff out. It's free, but if you have money and would like to throw me some money, boy, howdy. There's a PayPal. There is at my email address, actually, Jackie@JackieCation.com, which you can also email me and tell me how much you're enjoying the show. You can also do Venmo if you'd like, which is just Jackie Cation. No hyphen, all one word. Picture of this person, me, and then I think that's it. I think I have Zelle, but it's too complicated. Other than that, let's do the credits. Patrick Brady still in, fixing the audio all these years later. Give it up to Patrick Brady. That's what a lot of your donations support, by the way, because I like to share the wealth. And then Vilmos, he does the websites, and Mike Ruekberg wrote and sang that song, composed and sang that song with his wife now, Sarah. And at the end, he sings the Mexican hat dance, which is always fun. Anyway, I'm sure there's more to it. There's a band camp that has a bunch. It has like a stand-up storytelling album that was never released. It's there's also a bunch of live episodes that many of them are free. There were 200 episodes that were not pre-recorded, and I sort of culled through those, and I pulled like 17 of the best ones. There's an album collection of that, 17 hours of Dork Forest. If you run through all of the episodes, go to bandcamp.com, Dork Forest, or Google those words, and you'll find it. Anyway, there's probably more. I can't remember any of it, but you're doing great. Feel free to enjoy the show. It's happening. It's finally happening, Raja. Is it happening?
Yes, it is happening.
Hi, my name is Jackie Cation, and I'm with me here on the Dork Forest. I don't know why I'm so screaming now. Is Raja Michael, stand-up comic, horror, and to be more horror. If you're writing horror and you're shooting a short film about horror, Raja Michael would like to do a lot more horror films, is what it sounds like. So Raja Michael, stand-up comic and filmmaker. It's spelled RAJA, MICHAEL 123 on Instagram, and then the name of her short film, which is a horror film, is on YouTube. It's called Brownie Points, and
called Bonding.
Wait, no, it's called Bonding.
Yes,
and the album's called Brownie Points. Guys, let's back up and let me get this right. Jackie Cation, the name of her new album or current album is called Brownie Points, and it's on all the streaming platforms. And then the name of the short is called Bonding, and it's on YouTube, and it's under Brownie Points Productions. So if you look on Bonding, and probably her name, Raja Michael,
yes.
Right? Turns out you'll find it, and I'll put a link in the notes. So we'll she has a dog who has a cone.
Just had surgery, and she won't stay away from me. You know how they are.
I do. I just took the dogs to be cleaned, and for some reason they will only hang out with me, and I was the one who instigated it. Anyway, so instigator. So welcome to the program, the Dork Forest. Raja Michael and I did some sort of talking head thing with Fugelsang, right? John Fugelsang on Sirius a couple of weeks ago. And it was nice to meet you. And I can't wait to see your stand-up.
but now, and I sadly will not be watching your horror film because horror films scare me. But horror films are your dorkdom.
Mhm.
And I've done them before. It's usually around Halloween when I have somebody to talk about them, but everybody loves them. And I keep hearing this more and more, is that people use it as a way to process their own trauma and their own issues and they're like, no, it actually is very soothing and it makes me feel seen and all. Is it like that?
It depends on the movie. Some of it is like too much for me. You know, I have a limit, but
Fair
I think
enough.
some of it, yeah, sometimes because you think about it, like especially when I was growing up in the 80s, 90s, all the movies you watch, it's like some man having a man crisis about man stuff, and I don't care. Like the average prestige film, I'm not watching that. 2 hours of men having men existential crisis of treating
Are
women
you-
bad because of it.
Well, somehow I think you're talking about Indiana Jones. And it's what I love about that answer is that means that you have never seen Indiana Jones. Have you ever seen Indiana Raiders of the? Well, so be it. That's one of my dorkdoms. So you grew up. So did you grow up watching? Aren't horror movies men having men crises or no?
Well, a lot of them, most of the best ones are always have female leads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think
Really?
yeah, the good ones do. Well, some good ones maybe not, but yeah, majority of the good ones have female leads. It's kind of like for a sexist reason because the leads are supposed to be vulnerable, so these sexist guys always
Right.
get the woman as the lead, but sometimes something good comes out of it.
Right. Well, at least, yeah. I mean, at the very least, it's at least women getting work.
Yes, they're getting
And-
paid, so that's something.
And then I just found this out. What a couple episodes about horror films about someone else's dorkdom is that there's always one woman who lives.
Yes, the final girl.
That's it. That's what it's called, The Final Girl. And there was a movie called The Final Girl, I think,
Yes.
that this guy really liked, which is when I heard the term. So the first one when did you also said that you had something when you were a kid called sleep paralysis?
Yeah, do you know about that?
No. What is
So
that?
it's this thing where like when you're sleeping, right, and you're in your REM cycle, you're dreaming. So your body releases like a hormone, I forgot what it's called, but it makes you paralyzed so you don't walk in your sleep. And your mind is
Oh.
also sleeping. But if you have it's just like a physiological thing that sometimes your mind doesn't fall asleep, but your body does. So then you see your dreams, you're awake, but you still see your dreams and they look like they're really there. So
Right.
it's called sleep paralysis. It's just like a thing, like a medical thing,
Oh, weird. So
yeah,
is it
weird.
different from lucid dreaming?
I think it's somewhere similar. I think it's somewhere on that spectrum.
But it's the actual physical reaction, and maybe that's how they explained lucid dreaming, is because what you're doing is you are not asleep, but you're dreaming, and thus you're seeing your dream, and you're like, oh, I know I'm awake, but I'm clearly dreaming. So you're
Yeah,
watching
something
your
like that.
dream kind of go by.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about lucid dreams, but it does sound like that.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's the same. Who knows? What am I? Rockefeller? I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not like very like I know my own experience, but I'm not super informed about like sleep stuff. But I did have this when I was a kid. When you're a kid, if you tell your parents that you see like you think there's a monster in the room, they're like being responsible parents. They'll tell you it's not real and these put you back to
Yeah.
bed, but you still see this stuff. And then I used to go to this evangelical church when I was a kid. So I told this lady, a nice lady at the church, that I was having these dreams. So she told me it was like the devil. Like, why would you say that to a 6-year-old? I don't know.
Nope.
I'll never understand.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just the weird things people say to children. But
Yeah, that is a weird thing to say to a child, that it's actually the devil. So, but you were having they were lucid dreams, or they were dreams. You were in bed. Talk to me here. You're 6 or
Sure.
7 years old. You're in bed.
So you fall asleep and then you're awake, but you can't move and you can't talk because you're paralyzed like you're supposed to be you're supposed to be when you're sleeping, right?
Okay.
So you wake up and you're trying to yell and you're trying to get out of bed, but you can't. So it's like really scary. And then you see, it's always like most people see them like as shadows, like little shadow monsters, or sometimes like somebody sitting on your chest and it's like a lot of pressure.
Oh,
But
wow.
so you try to get up and scream and wake up because you think it's really happening and your body's completely still. And you don't
Okay.
know, yeah, and then, you don't know how long it is because it feels like hours, but it's probably like 3 minutes or something.
Or it might be 3 seconds, but it feels interminable.
Yeah, but then you wake up suddenly after you're done sleeping, and you're like, "Did that really happen, or was it a dream?" Or, but in the
Yeah.
moment, it's pretty scary, you know.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, that is really weird. I would say that I have had such a thing where I've woken up but I can't move, and I
Mhm.
see a shadow in the doorway and it looks like a
Exactly.
person
Exactly.
kind of thing, or it looks like, and you're like, is there someone in this fucking room with me? And I think Dana Gould was it him who said that somebody told me that their parents gave them a blow up clown for a birthday, and then they put it in their room as a something to wake up to as a gift.
That's a
And
terrible
it was a terrifying
Terrible gift.
man-sized thing when you're a child, and it's just sort of rock. It sounds like a nightmare. And then Dana Gould, he stayed at his aunt's, and there was a bust of the Jesus,
Oh,
but with a ring of thorns,
scary.
just all in pain on the bedside table. So like on the end table that's next to the bed. So he would wake up and he would just see that. Yeah, it was like, those are real, and that sounds like a terrible idea, but it would make an excellent horror film.
Yes. What you were saying about that shadow thing, yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's sleep paralysis.
Okay, all right. Well, and I didn't have it a lot, and I think it still happens at Kate, but it's very rare. And if it happened when I was a child, I bet you I would have been scared out of my freaking wits. Yeah. So then you see a movie, which is what made you start liking horror films, and not like gross ones or shock ones, literally just the ones filled with tension. Is that what I'm hearing?
Stories. I like good stories, you know.
It's the tension that kills me. I don't mind action. And if it's bloody, that's gross, but I'm not that. I'm just like, whatever. But the tense ones are the ones that literally I stand up and I walk out of the room. I will watch them from the door sometimes with a little bit of rocking. I'm like, what's gonna, and then I'll sometimes watch if I've read how they end.
Yeah. Sometimes it makes it easier, right?
Yeah.
You know, I watched The Haunting of Hill House, and I had to use the bathroom, and I kept making Lenny like guard the hallway so I could be. If there was a ghost in here, what is me guarding the hallway gonna do, right? Like,
Right.
Shut up and guard the doorway. If you love me, guard the hallway. Just wait. It'll be 2 minutes.
Just gonna be a couple of minutes. Well, now, what's The Haunting of Hill House about? Wait.
Haunting of Hill House. That was a Netflix show. There's a book, an old book, but the Netflix show is very different than the book. But it's like a family. They live in a haunted house.
Sure they do.
And and then they're adults and they're all messed up from it. So they have to like go back to their childhoods and figure out, you know, all their family dynamics. And it's a drama. It's like lots of drama, but it's a horror, but it was really scary.
Yeah. The hilarious thing, like I think about like, do you like haunted houses too? Do you like on Halloween going to those? Because that's all jump scare. That's all.
I don't like that.
Allow me to ruin dolls for you or whatever. And but some people really think that those are they like the art of it, or they like the set design of it. It's not.
For me, it's like more, I like good stories. I don't like the horror part is not really that interesting to me. It's the using horror to express a feeling that you don't have words for, or no one would watch if like, you know, like there's a lot of things that no one would watch unless it's a horror because that's too serious or too gloomy.
So you like the psychological arc that they're sort of addressing in. Okay, you gave me a list of horror films. What am I learning from this list? Let us begin. Nightmare on Elm Street. What am I learning?
Okay, so that was my first horror movie I saw when I was 10. My older cousin was babysitting, and she let us watch this, which I was not allowed to watch movies like that. But she did. Me and my sisters, my other cousins. It was like we had ice cream. It was like, you know, a whole thing. It was really fun. In that movie, you know, there's Nancy, who's the lead. It's a teenage girl, not a man having a man crisis. It's actually a girl, like it was a nice, you know, when you're 10, you want to see another girl on TV. You always watch shows about, like, you know, kids shows about boys and stuff.
Right.
So there's that. And then her and her friends are having these nightmares. And the nightmares were coming to life. Like this, like Freddy Krueger is in their nightmares, and he's coming to life and he starts killing children. So Nancy has to figure out why he's in her dreams, you know, and she's the final girl. So, you know, as I told you, I had sleep paralysis. So when I watched
Right.
that movie, I was like, somebody understands me.
There
And it
is the nightmares. And in this case, you were validated because the nightmares were real.
yeah, yeah. And the thing that was great about the movie is, well, there is an ending that makes it seem like he wins, but like the studio made Wes Craven add it. But his real script is when she defeats him, right? By turning her back on him and saying, I'm not scared of you. And she defeats him like that. So my cousin, when she was telling us, she stopped it there and said, this is how he really wanted to film. So the ending, she beats this like shadow monster, like this, not,
Yeah.
he's not, he was Freddy Krueger. He was like someone who murdered children. So all the parents in the community killed him because they couldn't get justice.
Right.
So then he started coming back and hunting their children in their dreams. So it's a little different, but then she like turns her back on him and she's like, you know, you're nothing. And he disappears, he loses all his power. So then I started doing that when I would have like these nightmares and stuff. And, you know, it really helped me. It was like somebody understood me. You know what I mean?
It actually gave you a thing to do. You were
Yeah.
just like, and the what a great babysitter. What a great way to. Now, why do you think that, how did it end that they made Wes Craven end it different? Why does he live? Why did
they made him seem like everything was good, and then she goes to see her friends, and then he comes back and gets all of them. But they did it so they could get a sequel, you know, to make more money.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
but
It was because
really
of money.
Yeah.
Interesting. Why didn't I guess it? I should have guessed it.
Yes, always money.
Okay, but good for your babysitter for freaking stopping it there. What now? Rosemary's Baby is one of the religious ones, isn't it?
Yeah, the Satanic Panic. Yeah.
Oh, Satanic Panic. What was I've never seen any of these. So what was Rosemary's Baby, and what am I supposed to learn from that?
I do apologize for bringing it up because we all know the director was a bad person. So,
Who was the director?
What's his name? Roman Polanski. He was like,
right. Oh, was it about incest? Because that was his problem. Because I saw Chinatown, and that was disturbingly disgusting. And then I learned that he was actually a pedophile, and I was like, shocking no one. He's a dirtbag. But
yes, I do apologize that it's his film, but the source material came from somebody else.
Right.
But in this story, Rosemary, right, she's pregnant.
Okay.
And she knows there's a conspiracy around the baby.
Okay.
But everyone's treating her like she's crazy, especially her doctor. Everyone's treating her like she's crazy. She's being gaslit. But really what happened is, like, it sounds so silly if you're not watching the movie, but like her husband is an actor and he makes a deal with the devil. He wants an acting career.
Deals with the devil movies? I don't have a problem with those at all. No, I'll watch those all day long.
Oh, yeah?
And watch how that Henry Phillips has the best. Now, allow me to interrupt every story with an anecdote about some stand-up comic. Henry Phillips has the best deal with the devil joke ever. He said, people ask how he learned how to play guitar. He said, well, I made a deal with the devil. He said, meet me at the crossroads and I'll make a deal with the devil. And so I went to the crossroads and he said, okay. And he signs the paper and then he turns to the devil. He says, now what happens? And the devil says, well, you meet me here once a week and we work on chords. Oh, it backfired. Anyway, but the actor wants to be a famous actor and so makes a deal with the devil and gives the baby up.
No, he lets the devil make his wife pregnant while she's kind of like not conscious. So it's rape, and there's this whole like a coven of devil worshippers who are like all live in they move to this building and all these people are in this coven, but they pretend they're not. So she knows something's going on, but no.
The Melrose Place of Devil Coven. Okay.
Then by the end, you know, she is justified because she is right. So it's kind of like, when I saw it, it's like, you know, women that's why I think people think it's weird that women watch horror so much, but there's a reason, because so much of our life is like avoiding fear or getting through fear, like walking to your car at night. Everything's a horror movie if you think about it for us. But then she's validated in the end that she was right. You know, that she wasn't crazy. She was always sane, and she knew what was going on with her, but everyone else was treating her like she didn't.
Right. Right. Oh, I see why you like these. Because you're just like, no, because you're over and over again, you're shown. I see. Okay. What is Hereditary?
Hereditary, it's an Ari Aster film. It's really scary. I think it's one of the scariest things I've ever seen. I'm not going to watch it again because it scared me too much. But it's also like a satanic panic film. And it's really, if you think it's about this this family, the grandmother passes, but she had made a deal with the demon to get like a male heir for this demon. So the family doesn't know, but there's this whole like conspiracy with the coven where they're trying to get the male grandson.
Okay.
and it sounds silly, but if you watch it, it's very serious. But the whole thing, you see all this like family dysfunction, like that relationship with the mother towards her child, and then she's kind of not a very great mother either, like because she has like a kid who has allergies with no EpiPen and walking, like so she has like it's just like you see all this family dysfunction, and normally like I'm not like so I'm not like a prestige film person. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not that cultured or sophisticated.
What?
And if you had to just show me.
What's define a prestige film? Because I don't know.
The kind that win Oscars for picture of the year.
Oh, you mean like well acted dramas?
Yes.
Like The Notebook? Okay, yeah, that's a different person than myself as well. A lot of Rangers of the Dork Forest enjoy a well crafted drama. This episode is not about that. So this episode, but I like the fact that you are just pulling stuff out of it. First of all, let me back up before I hear about, because I do want to hear about this, which is you call them satanic panic. Are they just, is that what they're called every time the devil's involved, or they're religious?
It's genre of horror.
It's a genre. Okay. Well, that's hilarious. And then I like that it is, what you like about it is the story that it's about a family. You're like, it is about a dysfunctional. You're like, well, of course it would be. The devil's involved. Except for that, you're like, if you were to remove the devil, it might just be a regular drama that you're unwilling to sit through.
Yes. Because it's too depressing. So, but it's really good. The story is great. And that's the thing too, like when I was learning to write horror, because I love it so much now that I'm writing it.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of studying of it. And that was the main thing, is for a really good horror movie, the drama portion of it should be able to work on its own with or without the horror.
Right.
And if it doesn't, then you don't have a good movie.
Right. But the way that the people process this, like, the problems are real, right? There is a mother who has a favored son, or wants there to be a son, or wants there to be a special child, and ignores the hell out of the rest of the family and isn't great, right? And so, but the way this is processed, how is this processed? Do they end up killing the son of the devil?
No, it's
how does Heredity? Oh, is it?
Can we do spoilers?
Oh my gosh. I will tell people, yes. Feel free.
Pretty much everyone dies except for the male heir that.
Oh, the demon?
Yeah, the demon wants. Everyone else dies, and then the demon like possesses the boy because that's what he wants. He wants to possess.
Oh, so I see why you don't want to watch this anymore. You're not given a solution, right?
Yeah, it's too realistic. You can't always solve your family problems. Your life, I want escapism.
Right. Well, the thing is this, from the pattern I'm seeing, is that these are real problems, and they give you sort of larger than life solutions to them that you can sort of right size in your own life. You're having a nightmare. You could say, I'm not afraid of you, and turn around and walk away from that nightmare. Well, you're not going to kill him. You're going to turn around and walk away from that nightmare, right?
Yes.
Rosemary's Baby. Did we figure out how Rosemary's Baby ended? No. How did Rosemary's Baby?
It's very sad ending. She realizes like her baby is like half demon after he's born.
Oh, right. Oh, right. She realizes that she's not crazy. Yeah. Everybody else around her is crazy.
Or they're making her think she's crazy.
Right. And so how is the baby cured of its half demon side?
No, it kind of just is a demon baby.
And she's like, sometimes you have a demon.
She's horrified and then it ends.
She's horrified and then it ends?
Yes.
Okay, I don't mind that either. Just because have you met children?
Yes.
Like they're like, I saw some comic the other night in San Francisco. I did the Throckmorton, and the guy who went up two before me, I think his name is Key Davis. And he was talking about how his daughter is just a piece of shit. He's like, she's a mean person. She's self-absorbed and horrible. And all I could think was, you raised her. Is it nurture? You're saying it's entirely nature. You're saying that you didn't have anything to do with this. And I don't know.
Exactly.
Right. But I do know, I mean, you look back, I mean, I'm sure there we don't have a psychologist with us. You have two comedians. By the way, I am talking with Raja Michael, who has an album out called Brownie Points that you can listen to anywhere, and a horror movie, a short that she made herself called Bonding on YouTube. And if you were to Google, and I'll put a link to it, Bonding and Brownie Points, you would find it on YouTube, and then you would watch it, and then she would get watches. If you like scary things, do that. But
awesome because it won 2 awards, when we first submitted to festivals.
Yeah.
But it was during the lockdown, so it never got screened anywhere because all of the festivals were online. So we didn't get that experience, of watching it on the big screen and having interactions with other filmmakers at a festival,
No, that is not okay. So, okay. And before we go to the next one, I want to say the people who are writing these movies, are they mostly men?
Yeah, unfortunately, because it is the reality of all film, kind of. But it's changing a little bit. I'm seeing a few more women being allowed in.
Right.
Into the
into the inner sanctum, occupied by the devil.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that it's interesting that these guys are writing these dramas that are to process their own fears.
Yes.
And they're casting women to either be murdered or to be the hero or to be the final girl. And okay, so I thought it was interesting that, because I knew it was going to be all guys. How about Under the Shadow?
Oh, Under the Shadow. So that's a Persian language film.
Okay.
It's really interesting. I've been trying to watch horror movies from other places too, because I know as Americans, we often just watch American media. So I'm doing my best to watch other from other countries horror movies. And that one, it was made by a man, but he based it on some stories about his mother's life that she told him.
Okay.
About living post-revolution in Iran.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so the lead, she's a doctor, but she's not allowed to practice medicine because she was a progressive, and so so she couldn't practice, and she had to hide her TV and hide her. So her and her family were more, they just didn't fit the new, yeah, and so so a lot of the tension comes from the patriarchy that she's dealing with.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was such an incredible movie because it was super low budget, but it was so scary. Because it had a character you really care about, and you want to see her win, and you want to see her succeed, and her child. And
so what is the horror angle, or is it just a very tense political thriller?
Oh no, there's a djinn.
There's a djinn.
Yeah, there's a djinn that wants to take is in her home. It's just her and her daughter. They were supposed to leave because of the bomb threats or whatever in the area, but she was kind of stubborn, and she let her husband go, and she said she'll meet up with him later. So it's just her and her daughter in the apartment, and mostly everyone in the building is gone. And she believes there's a djinn in there trying to get them. So that's the tension of for how the tension she's living in this patriarchal situation, being a very progressive woman with an education.
Right. And the djinn is, okay, this is going to sound ridiculous, but is he bossy? Is he what? Is he taking the spot of the patriarchy? What is he?
It's this demon that's in the house, right? So it's I think it's not so much that the djinn doesn't really, it's not that it acts like patriarchy, it's more the constant tension she's in. It's
right.
Metaphor
and this
for
is one more thing. Yeah. And now one more thing, this crazy ass djinn. And how does that one end, if I might ask?
It ends kind of her and her daughter get out of the building, but then you realize it's not over because the djinn is so yeah, these
they don't defeat
some happier stories.
Oh no, that's okay. But the thing, because what you're liking about that, besides the supernatural element, is the fact that they're revealing this patriarchy, the fact that they're revealing sort of what women or what people have to live through. And then all of a sudden there's a fucking ghost. Well, why don't you suck a dick? And turns out I turned this into a Blue episode. Anyway, I did do an episode probably 3 or 4 years ago of the Dork Forest about, because you were talking about non-American, non-US shot. There are very scary Chinese ghost and vampire movies that are all over YouTube. Chinese vampires, not scary. Wait. I think Chinese ghosts are terrifying movies, I was told. Chinese vampire movies, they hop. So not scary. And
they're funny.
they're kind of funny because they're just like, is this a hopping vampire movie? Yes, it is. But the ghost ones are actually supposed to be quite scary. And so if you were to want to look into that, or it was who was that comic? She's super funny. I just saw her at the Crow. Oh, well, I will Google that and put it in the notes. So because everyone might enjoy listening to that episode again, or at least looking up whether I'm right. Because if you watch a Chinese vampire movie and it is actually terrifying, then I meant that the Chinese ghost ones was funny. Sorry.
I'll check out both. I'm excited.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So what's The Stepfather?
The Stepfather. So there's a remake. I didn't see the remake because I usually don't like the remakes. So I didn't bother with it. So I don't know if the remake's good or not. But the original movie, I think, is like from the 70s.
Okay.
And, so it's the story. There's like this villain who's this man who goes around marrying women. Like, like he'll
already know what the B plot of this one is. Okay.
He goes around, he'll find like a family, like a woman, a single mother and a child.
Yeah.
And he'll go like sweep her off her feet and marry her. And then, but he's a serial killer. So then he kills the family and then moves on to the next family. So he goes on doing this, So then there's like a detective, two men, like there's a detective and there's like this, I think the relative of one of his victims. They both are trying to go after him. So he's married to a new family now. So he's married to this new mom, and there's a daughter. And that's the thing with these stories. They always make these leads that you really care about. Because like there's this daughter, you think, oh no, she's gonna die, So you have to you get so invested in them,
Right,
so
right.
The mom, she's not seeing it. Like the daughter knows the guy's off, but the mom's not seeing it. She's like in denial because she loves her new man. This stuff happens all the time with families. So then,
and there we found it.
The whole thing. So like then there's the detective who's like trying to hunt down this guy. He's in the know. Then there's like the relative of the last victim. So it's kind of, I really like that movie because again, I'm gonna give a spoiler, but it's really set up like you would expect, especially movies of that time where this heroic man comes in and saves this woman and is like the hero, and you really think that's what's gonna happen. But the guy kills both the men. So it's like this really like unexpected thing. And in the end, it's like the mom who has to realize who her husband is, and she's the one who ends up killing him because she's the one who has to get so it's, to me, it was super empowering because like you can't wait for a man to save you, and there was no male saving, and these women saved themselves, the mother and daughter at the end. So I love that movie. It's so great. And there's something cathartic about just seeing women kill their husband or their men.
Right, some terrible dude. Just there is something cathartic about just some woman. Cathartic. There was like a Dirty Harry movie where Clint Eastwood is chasing the serial killer, and it's this woman who just shoots guys in the dick. And right, they're rapists, and she finds them and she just shoots them and kills them. And they bleed out. And then there was just one, wasn't there just one where there was a woman who she was going to be a doctor and instead she pretends to be drunk, and then guys who seem like the nicest guys are like, I'll help you home. And then they start undressing her and she's not drunk. So she literally in the trailer, I never watched it, but in the trailers, all of a sudden, stone cold sober, she's saying to this very beautiful young man, looking like the nicest guy in the world. She goes, what are you doing? And then he's like, don't worry about it. And she goes, in a stone cold sober voice, she goes, what are you doing? And then I don't know if she kills them or if she blackmails them or if she does something else to them. But whatever the fuck this movie was, it looked terrifying and right up your alley, Raja. Right up your.
Oh. There's a South Korean movie called Sympathy for Lady Vengeance.
Okay.
Where this woman just kills like an entire pedophile ring. She's like murders all of them, like bloody, a little bloody for me, but also very cathartic.
Right. That's murder of men. Right. It's not, obviously I was raised with Title IX. I only know how to play volleyball. It's I don't know how to mass murder. So, but I will say that that's that genre where women save themselves, in a horror movie. That's kind of exciting. So now the next one is a classic, and people have explained this movie to me more than 3 times. I still don't remember what it's about. Is Jamie Lee Curtis in it?
Yes, I very love Jamie Lee Curtis.
I love Jamie Lee Curtis. It's Halloween, the first Halloween.
The first movie.
Is it her first movie as well?
Yeah, it's her very first movie.
Well, that's hilarious as well. What is it? Is it set at Halloween and then there's scary? What happens? What is Halloween about?
So Mike Myers, when he's a kid, he like murders his sister when he's like a little kid, like 8 years old or something. So they send him away, and he's like lives in an institution his whole life, and then he escapes. So he goes back to his hometown to go on a murder spree, basically.
Revenge. Okay.
So Jamie Lee Curtis, she's a teenage babysitter, and she's babysitting the kids. So she has to like save herself and the kids she's babysitting. And she's such a strong. I know, like, it's kind of sad because although the leads being women in horror, it comes from a sexist place, but by accident they made some really great female heroes, in some of these
right
movies. And her acting is just so great, and she makes the character so great. And I was a teenage babysitter.
Right. So was I.
Oh yeah, were you?
Yeah, of course. And there was money to be made. I was willing to do it. And I would look for their art books that had nudes. Anyway, it was a different time. What? It was exactly the same. Anyway, but so she has to save the kids, and she does. And who's the bad guy in Halloween? Mike
Myers.
And that's the name of the character?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. It just sounds like it could have been anyone.
Yeah, because he's just a random guy, like living in the suburbs.
Yeah. Tom Davis is our bad guy. What? That's so weird. Okay. But why are there 1,000 Halloweens? Does Mike Myers live?
Yeah, the sequels are not very good, I'm going to be honest.
That's what I've heard.
Sequels are never like that. It's very rare to get a really good sequel because it's not the same people writing them. It just becomes like a thing for studios to make money. So there's 1,000 sequels just for the studios to make money.
Oh my God.
And it gets really strange. He goes to space. He does it. Like, it's just silly.
He goes to space.
Yes. I don't really get into the sequels as much because I'm more into the story than the gore,
Right. Exactly. Okay. What is the haunting? The thing that we talked about already, the haunting on the hill, or is that a different haunting?
Yeah. The haunting there's a book called Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
Eleanor Jackson. It's actually written by a woman. And then, so The Haunting is actually a movie based on that book. It's an old black and white horror. But then The Haunting of Hill House is like a Netflix series, but it's very loosely related to the original.
Okay. Yeah. So the movie, The Haunting, what was that about?
So this, there's like
it's that people, it's the same sort of premise. The kids grow up and they got to go back and face.
Oh no, there's no kids in this one.
Okay.
So there's the main character, Eleanor. She's she's like this very repressed kind of young woman at that time. And she's always taking care of her mother, and nobody lets her have any freedom, like she gets treated bad, but she's not married, especially in the time that it was written.
Okay.
She has kids, and she's treated like poorly by her family. And then she somehow had like some paranormal experience in her childhood. So there's this fake doctor, like pseudo scientist, who wants to do like a research study about paranormal. So this famously haunted mansion. So he invites all these people who were linked to some sort of paranormal activity as children to this place to investigate the house. So she runs away, she steals the family car and drives off. And it's like finally like her big adventure away from her family. And
okay.
But then it doesn't end well for her because
because she and when was the book written? Do you know when the book was written and when the movie was?
It's pretty old. Let me see, I can look it up real quick.
Yeah. It's and then when was the movie made? These are my questions.
Shirley Jackson. I'm sorry, the author is Shirley Jackson.
Okay. So The Haunting, the book.
It's a good book too.
Oh, the book was good as well?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's too many things called The Haunting.
Yeah. So The Haunting of Hill House book.
Oh, The Haunting of Hill House, Shirley Jackson.
Yeah, Shirley Jackson. That's the one.
Okay.
And then let me see if The Haunting movie when that was made.
Somebody spelt it The Hantings. Anyway, it wasn't me. Somebody is right now going, you could look this up later. Or they're also saying this was clearly originally published in 2020. That can't be right.
No, that's not right. That's from the Netflix series, I think.
I have to say that the idea that this woman is essentially, she's being punished for going away from her responsibility of being her aging parents' doormat. And
the movie's from 1963.
Okay, the movie's from 63.
Mm-hmm.
So the book was written at least 10 years earlier, 5 years earlier. Okay, so this is some sort of weird spinstery kind of punishment for this woman running away. So what did you like about that story?
I think it's the psychological aspect of it, because you don't know if the house is haunted or if it's something she's seeing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, it is really haunted. Shirley Jackson did say it was actually haunted, so she wasn't imagining it, but people thought she was. Right. But it was more like it was kind of it's a sad story because she's somebody who's very oppressed, and how that experience, she felt so connected to this house,
right?
The house, because of like everything she's been through. So it's a very sad story. It ends in a bad way because she like dies at the end. Whatever. Spoiler.
Does she just die at the end, or do they all die?
No, just her.
What about the scientist who made this horrible thing happen, where everybody's like, come on,
he's the man. The man always live. He's a terrible man.
Men live.
Terrible men always live, you know?
that is another crazy ass lesson. It makes me want to go into the people who write the horror. Like, you're writing it, and will you write it to process?
Yeah.
Is it
the first story I wrote, even my short film, it's like with my poor mom. She's always having to hear things. I do a lot of jokes about her. It's on my album, everything. She's being very patient with my art.
Right. And you're like, you did the best you could. Sometimes it wasn't great. I have parents too. Everyone has parents. Guess what? She had parents who probably did the best they could, and it wasn't great.
No.
And,
but it's like a teenage girl and a mother driving, and so if I would say like what the story is really about, it's like a contentious relationship between the mother and daughter. So more like the daughter.
Say that again. My headphones. I don't know if you could tell. Yeah.
If I say what the story is about, like the drama portion of it, that the real story would be that there's a contentious relationship between the mother and daughter, where the mother is not kind with her words, and like in a way the daughter wants to get back at her mom. In the story, the mother and daughter are driving. The mother they're fighting because the mom's, not realizing that her words are hurtful. Like often happens, people don't intend to hurt their kids, but they do. Are you okay? I like the hairstyle.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening with my headphones here. And I kind of love the fact that you're like, sometimes parents hurt children with their words and they don't know it. And I wrote a story, and then what happens?
So,
is there a demon? Is there a serial killer? Is there?
So the mother goes to use the restroom. She stops and uses the restroom. It's late at night in the dark in the woods. We filmed it in Griffith Park, but it looks like the woods. And then, so the mother comes back, and suddenly the mother is really nice as soon as she gets back and she starts driving. Oh. And then the daughter gets scared, like, who is that? Because that person's nice. That's the word. That's to figure it out. I based it on something too with my own mom. One day my mom called me, and she was being really nice, like really sweet, and I'm proud of you and I love you. And I was like, are you dying? I got so scared, right? Turns out, Jackie, she was diagnosed with something, and she thought she might have been dying. And that's why she was being really nice. So she had to have this big surgery. It was terrifying. But I knew exactly when she was being nice to me, I was like, my mom's dying. Like, I got scared, Then she had a surgery. It was very successful. Everything was fine. And you know how I know? She called me, started yelling. And I was like, oh, you're okay.
Oh,
Mom's okay.
God.
So it was a very stressful experience. That's where that story came from.
Yeah, that's where that story would come from.
Yeah, and I knew because she called me one day and she just started yelling for no reason. I was like, I live on the other coast, on the other side of the country. We haven't seen each other in like a month. I had talked to you yesterday. You weren't mad yesterday, but you're mad today. What could have happened that made you mad? It's like, I know, you're feeling better. So.
Yeah, my father there's okay. So my dad will sometimes talk about the nature of, he's like, I'm going to church tomorrow, I'm going to take communion. And I was like, well, good luck, Dad. And he's like, yeah, I think it'll help. And then some days he's like, yeah, I don't want to go. I don't want to sit through church. And I'm like, I take it you're feeling pretty healthy today, 86. And because it's always when he doesn't feel well. And he changed fundamentally when he'd almost died like 3 times. He had open heart surgery and they fucked it up and they had to open him up 2 more times. And everyone was like, oh, he is dead now. This is a dead person. He was like 78 or 79. It's like 7 years ago. And he lived. He lived and he lived and he lived. And then he was so nice. And I knew when like he was like 3 months into recovery and I was like, he may still die. I want to have him on the Dork Forest. So we recorded a Dork Forest, my father and I wanted his dorkdom to be about sales because he's a sales guy and he loves sales. I don't think I realized until that Dork Forest that absolutely everything in my father's life, every interaction with humanity is sales. He is selling himself to you, to a lady, to a person at a register, to his doctor, to his nurse, to a guy on the bus, to a dude asking for money on the street. It literally doesn't matter who he's talking about or to. That is a mark. That is someone that he is. And so he was explaining to me about his girlfriend in the 60s. And he was separated from my mother from 60, I think would have been 69 to 72. And he was talking about his girlfriend in 1967. And I was like, Dad, I don't like the math on that. And he said something that I knew he was going to live because he said, well, it's not my fault. That's the math. And I'm like, no, it's specifically your fault. I don't know where that recording is. I was so angry about that. I got so mad at him that it's on a hard drive somewhere and I should probably look for it because he's going to die one day and I'm going to want to post it. But I couldn't stand it. I was so furious. But we could write, it would be a weird thing if he came back and he was like, I'm really sorry for the different things that have happened in your life that I may have been responsible for. I would be like, oh, are you possessed by someone else? Are you a Skrull? What happened? Yeah, that's banana land. Yeah. So processing that kind of stuff. Yeah, you could do anything. You could write about anything. And then what would it be? Do you like the idea of possession? Do you like the idea of serial killers or do you like?
Usually I'm not a big serial killer movie person in general, just because the gore, but if it's a good story, I like anything,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what I've written. I think I like not serial killer, more like the ghost thing or like creature features or
okay
ghost hauntings.
Okay. There was a short story that actually, if they turned it into a horror film, I wouldn't, it might be the kind of horror film that you would like. It's about a family that's just traveling, kind of like Chevy Chase's vacation movies, except for that, and the family's the worst, right? The grandmother is a fucking nightmare and she will not stop. And they hear on the radio that a serial killer has escaped from the local prison. And of course, that guy who's chained to another guy, because it was written in the 50s, find this family and they killed the whole family, like the serial killer and the guy. And it's a Flannery O'Connor short story called A Good Man Is Hard to Find. And there's a line in it from the serial killer guy, because the guy that's chained to him was like, we should have killed that old woman first. She was just a pill. And the serial killer guy said, this is an amazing sentence. He said, she wasn't so bad. She would have been okay if there would have been someone to kill her every day of her life. It really, like, because she turned into the nicest person once she knew she was going to die. And it was such a weird, I mean, that's the kind of horror that you kind of like, where you're like, what are we learning from this?
Yeah, I like the stories, yeah.
capitalism is bad.
Yeah.
I think some of the zombie movies have that
Yeah,
kind of story.
Mhm.
And what
Oh, I
about
love zombie movies.
You like zombie movies
Oh
too?
yeah. Yeah, I do love them.
Did you see that one in the mall, the famous one with the zombies in the mall? That was supposedly about capitalism.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
I don't
then
remember which one that was, but yes, I did see a couple times.
it's super famous.
Very
And
good, yes.
everyone is like,
The
Jackie,
Romero
you
film.
should, yeah. And then the last one on your list, and we're cruising here, is The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes, I love that movie. It's one of my favorites.
I've only seen Young Frankenstein, which is a Mel Brooks version.
Yeah.
What is The Bride of Frankenstein? What is
So
that?
it's like the sequel to Frankenstein. So that's the beginning.
Is it?
Yeah. So Frankenstein, I love them. Frankenstein's so interesting because the first book, it's a good story, but it's very much a story of that time where it's like, don't play God is the moral, whatever.
Okay.
But Frankenstein I really like that one because it's very sensitive, but the story is like, so this mad scientist who made Frankenstein, he makes him a bride.
What? Because he just can't meet a nice girl who can't see past the scar on his
He's
head?
dead. These women, they're so stuck up. They all want living men.
Bitches, man. And you're just like, what is happening? Anyway, I don't know why I've been swearing so much in this episode, but
Feels good.
there we go. I'm doing it for 2, you guys. Anyway, by the way, I'm talking with Raja Michael. Find her album. It's called Brownie Points. She has a scary movie called Bonding. It's on YouTube. So if you look up the words Raja Michael, or Brownie Points and Bonding, all 3 of those, none of them, I'll put them in the notes. You'll find it on YouTube. Good luck. Okay, so Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay, so Bride of Frankenstein. So he makes him a bride. So he's naturally very happy to have a bride, and the bride doesn't like him. She rejects him.
She can do better.
Yeah, she's like, no thanks. There's other dead men out there for me. I don't need you. Plenty of dead men in the sea. No thanks. So then he kind of ends up running away.
Okay.
And so of course he's Frankenstein. He's always misunderstood, right? So people always think he's a monster, but he's not.
Yeah.
So like in Frankenstein, it's interesting because he's not really the horror part. It's the townspeople, other people who come after him because he's different.
Yeah.
So he's really not the villain. It's like the town who thinks he's a monster who want to kill him. That's the villain usually of the Frankenstein stories.
Okay.
So then he makes friends with the blind man, and
right.
Yeah, and the filmmaker, he was a gay man living in that time, and so I think a lot of the story is very much about being misunderstood and people, like society being marginalizing you and coming after you, So him and this man, they become very close. And I guess because of the time, it's really hard to know exactly what. Yeah, it's the time. Everything's very censored, but like they become very close. A very intimate relationship. It's a very beautiful relationship. And then the townspeople come and they like take him away from there, and he loses like his one friend. It's like a very sad story, a beautiful story, really very tragic. So it has this beautiful drama of like this character they
forbidden love, and and misunderstood dude. Yeah,
people don't see him as someone with feelings because he's different, he's always being marginalized. So that was that's the story that I really like. That story. It's very sad though, like it's a tragedy. Yeah, it's like a very beautiful tragedy.
Well, I have to ask the hard questions. What happened to the bride? Is she just wayside? They just take care of her mother? Yeah.
Like, I don't remember the bride. What happened to the bride?
Yeah. What happens to the bride of Frankenstein because the real story is Frankenstein runs away from home and finds a blind dude who likes him for himself. And they end up either having a relationship or just becoming friends. And then the townspeople are like, well, we can't have these 2 men living together right in our neighborhood. That'll be weird. What will the children say?
And they ruin that relationship. They don't want them to be together.
And is Frankenstein destroyed in the end, or does he go back to Dr. Frankenstein?
I'm trying to remember. There was another sequel after that. So I think it's all blurred up whether or not he lives or dies for me. Because then after there's like Son of Frankenstein after that.
Weird.
My favorite was Bride of Frankenstein. That was the best one for me.
And it's so funny because I've seen the clip for Bride of Frankenstein with the bride, of course. And then it's weird to me that he's like, does he go back home and just like try to, and is there some pedant out there right now going, well, the doctor's name is Frankenstein. The monster doesn't have a name. And did he have a name? Was he called Frankenstein?
I think he was called, I forgot what he's called. No, I don't think he had a name.
Yeah. He
Yeah,
might just been called the monster, maybe.
yeah,
Because the townspeople, not sensitive, it turns out. Not sensitive.
It wasn't a very welcoming community. They were not very progressive. A little right-wing village.
Right, little right-wing village who weren't allowed to let perfectly peaceful couple live their lives out. Okay. Well, I mean, those are the ones that I've got that you wrote down. So, what are you writing now? Are you writing more scripts? Are you thinking about shooting again?
Yeah, I definitely want to. I wrote a short film, another short film that I want to shoot. It's just hard to get the budget. They're just expensive to make.
Yeah.
And then I wrote one like a mockumentary type, just to keep like a featured length, but mockumentary to keep it less expensive, right?
Yes.
It's easier to support. So, and that's a haunted house story. It's very like I wanted to do like a haunting meets Scooby-Doo, like funny but little,
Oh, good. Yeah.
Because I am a good joke writer.
Right, because it turns out
Roger
Michael can also write funny things. And yes, I will say I just did a new special, but it's a mockumentary special. It's not really a special. I looked into the ass camera of a Mazda 6 and told car jokes. It's called Looking Back. It's 10 minutes of me with a lav and somebody else with a camera pointed at a Mazda 6 in reverse. And then I hired someone to keep their foot on the brake so that it wouldn't be a snuff film. And I'm just going to put it on YouTube, right? And then cut it up into, it's 10 minutes. So it's kind of perfect for TikTok.
Yes.
And who knows? I wanted it to be cheap, but also more stand-up comedy. There's no audience. There's a couple of laughs from the team that I hired so I wouldn't die. So Kyle Clark shot the footage, and he wanted to do a 3-car camera shoot where it would be like the Mazda 6 and then somebody else's Prius and then somebody else's SUV. And it would just be different cars. That would have been funny. I get it.
That's cool though. I love it. I love when things are a little different because everything traditional is just so hard to do and so expensive to do. It's nice.
It's almost like they made it that way, the bastards.
Okay.
So what do you have any stand-up stuff to plug in
moment,
July or August?
No, not right now. I was focusing on writing. I took a little break from stand-up, but I'll get back to it.
Okay.
Soon. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go to her Instagram, it's mostly dogs.
Mostly my dog.
Yeah.
Right here.
There we go. There's your dog.
There's her cone. You can see her cone up here.
You see her cone. Oh, buddy. Roger Michael 123. RAJAMICHAEL 123. And go find that short because I know a bunch of you really like horror and that'll be super fun. But thank you so much for doing the show, Roger.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yay. And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
Can you hear the birds, Andy?
Barely.
Hi, Adele.
How was the show?
We're going to try this where I talk to you after the show like I used to do when there was an app.
We used to do it like this. Yes. I used to say, hi, Adele. How was the show?
And then I would say it was fascinating. And in this case, kind of terrifying.
Oh,
Raja Michael, RAJAMICHL.
okay.
And she likes horror movies, but she likes horror movies for a very, very specific reason. And it's because she has, she figures out it's a way to deal with whatever she's terrified about. Like the first thing that happens, she used to have this thing where she
uses it as therapy.
A little bit of therapy,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Because when she was terrified of something, the women who live in these things have stood up to their fears.
It's true.
Right. And the first one was Nightmare on Elm Street. And the way Wes Craven wanted to originally end it. That's how she stopped having nightmares when she was 10.
Oh,
She said, I'm not afraid of you, and turned around. which I guess is one. It's not the last scene because the studio loved the show so much, the movie so much, they wanted there to be a sequel.
Mhm.
So at the end implies that he was not banished.
Oh, I see.
So I never saw it. And
I did when I was in high school, and I barely remember it.
Right. So there was like Hereditary. She said she won't be watching that again. Too scary. The Stepfather, she said, one of the things is they're women who save themselves because men can't save them.
Right.
And so
yeah,
it's pretty great. Bride of Frankenstein, she couldn't remember how it ended. And I've never seen it.
I don't know. I don't remember how it ends either.
Well, the way she described it, it's not about Bride of Frankenstein. It's about Frankenstein. She doesn't like him. Like, by the way, Frankenstein, name of the scientist, not the name of the monster. But she said that it was, he runs away because she doesn't like him. And he finds a blind friend who does like him.
Right.
And then the township thinks they're gay. We don't know that that's what. Yeah, that way.
Well, that scene was parodied in Young Frankenstein. Remember?
Oh, I do vaguely remember that. I forgot about that. That it was entirely that he does. Because when she said that, I was like, oh, I remember him meeting the blind guy.
You remember?
I never saw. I remember Young Frankenstein. Well, it was a great episode, is what I'm saying. Let's try and do this maybe every episode. We'll see what happens. If I'm on the road, then I'll get to see you.
Yes.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?